Are you curious about China's power in the global economic landscape? As an overseas blogger who is obsessed with tracking, paying attention to, and deeply researching China's economy, I will take you on a journey of exploration of China's economy. Here, we will delve into the fundamentals of China's economy, interpret the far-reaching impact of policies, and explore potential risks and opportunities. Here, there are no flashy gimmicks, only the purest exploration of the Chinese economy. Through rigorous analysis, detailed data, and a professional perspective, we will dig deep into the operation mechanism, development trend, and challenges of China's economy. Not to be confused by appearances, only to reveal the true face of China's economy. Please follow my steps to enter the complex world of the Chinese economy and start a journey of in-depth research. Due to the length of this article is too long, respectively published in 5 parts, will be presented at the same time, convenient for everyone to read the complete. Thank you for watching. A detailed explanation of the meeting of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee Section 1. Finally, this meeting landed, is the Central Economic Work Conference. Then 2 meetings will be held this week. One is the Political Bureau meeting, the other is the Central Economic Work Conference. It will set the tone for the Chinese economy in 2025. People have been waiting for this meeting, but last night, the communiqué for this meeting was until around 9:00 p.m., just officially released, the beginning of 2024, the game is also the end of the year. We can look at this matter on the scale of a year. At the beginning of the year, I said that the Chinese economy in 2024 is very noteworthy. The Chinese economy in 24 years will determine the future of China. Because the economic difficulties encountered by the whole of China in 2024 will determine whether China will organize compromises in the future and what kind of compromises will be made. China's compromises should go through a phase when they begin to recognize the real structural problems, will be a key turning point in this compromise, so they will do a lot of itchy stimulus policies before they really recognize the structural problems. Or do a lot of short-term stimulus until they realize that the real structural problem in the Chinese economy is that we talked about it a lot, including international problems, overcapacity problems, industrial policy problems, obvious problems, etc. So by yesterday's meeting, have they really faced the structural problems of the Chinese economy? Where are we with the economy? The answer is no, not for me to say. Let's look at a supporting figure. It is the rate test of China's China Futures Index. China futures can only drop by 1% when the information was released at 7 o'clock yesterday. It was down 1.7 points when the details were released at 9 o'clock. And it's still down 0.89 points in terms of the market reaction. For yesterday's Central Economic Work Conference is not particularly big expectations. There is no particularly big expectations. But also because the previous Politburo meeting set after the rise a little. However, yesterday's Central Economic Transition Conference did not implement this expectation. It is under this expectation, so in general, we do not have many words for such a document itself. Then the words in it are very, very vague and difficult to interpret, but today, I will put this Central Economic Work Conference inside. The key content, which is presented to you in a digital way, is also what we have done this time and how much increment the economy can get. In what areas. Why did I say he wasn't facing the real problem at all? We're going to talk about that in detail today. Hello everyone, today December 13, we are interpreting the Central Economic Work Conference, and we are interpreting it in a purely numerical and rational way. First of all, for the Changhua Economic Work Conference, I only pay attention to one thing. What thing? It's the increment. How much of the economic increment is there? First of all, in such a long one is not very long. In such a meeting communique, there are a lot of things are not incremental, but you say important is also more important. For example, to carry out artificial intelligence actions to cultivate future industries, which sets a tone for new intelligent productivity. The key area of new intelligence productivity in the future is the field of artificial intelligence, and I don't know if you know it. China's eye is actually commendable recently on the idea of following the development of the United States, although it is still much worse than just GBD. However, there are also many products in the field of segmentation and even in the open source field. And even these products may have a great impact on the international eye in the future. Therefore, China's recent development of artificial intelligence cannot be said to be bad. And then the second comprehensive rectification, internal volume competition, which is also the field of domestic concern. However, this field has nothing to do with the increment. And it has carried out special operations to standardize and set up law enforcement, which is the increasingly fierce ocean fishing from the second half of this year. Ocean replenishment is likely to be carried out after the special action of standardized design law enforcement. There will be a certain degree of links, but this kind of thing. It is always easier to set goals than to put them into practice. So what about the other one? We will carry out coordinated reform of the taxation and fiscal systems. To increase local autonomous financial resources is to allocate 50% of this consumption tax to local governments, and to allocate the 3 local fees. The integration of this city, urban construction tax, this is such a matter. Then these matters are not important to the Chinese economy, but at the moment it is certainly not the most important thing. The focus now is on growth. The biggest goal of this year's meeting is also to say, what should we do next year? Next year, we will expand domestic demand in all directions, and it is this increase that will solve the problem of deflation. So today we will only focus on the increase. How many trillions? What problem does this potential solve better than in the past? Where is increment and milk? The increment must be the most concerned recently. That is, the so-called political bureau will have 2 moderately loose monetary policies. A more active fiscal policy would be these 2 points to provide the major incremental gains, and the good gains would come from 3 sources. One is to increase the deficit to GDP ratio. The other is to increase ultra-long-term special government bonds, and the other is to increase special government bonds, because ultra-long-term special government bonds and special government bonds are not included in the fiscal deficit. So he's 2 levers other than the deficit. What about these 3 levers? Increase the deficit to GDP ratio, which is now about 3/3. In the past 2022 and 2023, it was more than 3 out of 10, maybe 3.8 out of 10. Will the deficit to GDP ratio increase or not? We went up and down, and the deficit went from 3 to 4. So how much more is that 4% going to cost? Actually, it sounds like increasing the deficit ratio is a particularly big deal. However, the actual money is not much, because China's GDP is now 1.3 million yuan, so even if the deficit ratio is increased by 1 point, it is very high, and we have jumped from 3 to 4 points. This is only a high deficit ratio that has never been seen in the past, but under this self-discipline, it can increase by 1.3 trillion yuan. That is this money. The 1.3 trillion is mainly this money for what? What is the money for increasing the deficit ratio? This money is mainly used to increase transfer payments. It is the money that the central government makes various transfer payments to local governments. It is the so-called 3 guarantees fund, to ensure the people's livelihood, ensure the supply and ensure the operation of the government. To put it bluntly, is to pay civil servants. So a large part of this money is mainly to do 3 guarantees, as well as a variety of other areas of the money missed, and the money for tax cuts has to come out of the deficit ratio. So the deficit ratio is 1.3 trillion, which is 13,000 yuan, and we'll figure out in detail where he's going to spend some money. The total amount of transfer payments this year is more than 10 trillion yuan, which is the same as last year. Therefore, if all of the 1.3 trillion yuan is used to increase transfer payments, it is still a relatively considerable amount of money. After all, it has 13. This is not a small amount of money, but this money also has to bet on other holes. Each hole a bet me. Let me first say the conclusion, later we will talk about the serious process.